Baragani Netaru. Glad to see you today. It's another episode of Papa Alkebulan here on the Earth Mama Network. And today we're going to talk about They Came Before Columbus. I was talking to my wife, Doris, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to talk about next week. And she looked off in the distance, and then she said, They Came Before Columbus. So I'm going to try to talk about some things that Dr. Ivan Van Sertima put forth in his book, They Came Before Columbus. Also, I'm going to look at the works of Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, and try to address, every so often there comes movements that try to dissuade African Americans that they're actually African. And I don't want to get into a big argument, but I find those notions really sad. We are descendants of Africa. The world is descendant from Africa. Everyone, if you did not know it, and this was in Newsweek back in 1988, can trace their ancestry through mitochondrial DNA to this one black woman that lived in Africa over 250,000 years ago. So, and that's everybody. And to quote my father, whether you're black, white, or candy stripe, you can, I know, Big Will. Shout out to my dad, Big Will. That was one of his sayings. Whether you're black, white, or candy stripe, you can trace your DNA to this one black woman that lived over 250,000 years ago. Now, we just got through, many of us, celebrating the holiday known as Thanksgiving Day. And now, having a day to give thanks for your family, for your friends, it is important. I think it's good. It's a day when people can get together, family members from near and far can come together and celebrate each other, recognize each other, show respect to the elders, look at how the children have grown, etc. This past Thanksgiving Day, I had the pleasure of going to my sister-in-law's house, and my wife has such a talented family, and they had a live band, and some of the band members were actually members of her family. So they got down, and it was a really beautiful time. It was special because my father-in-law had fell. He fell twice, and he had to go into the hospital, and so he wasn't with us. And we always look forward to him to carving the turkey. And so, we had to spend part of our time Thanksgiving seeing about him, and we're glad to report now that he is back home, and we look forward to his speedy recovery. But we were giving thanks, that he was still with us. We're giving thanks for members that just passed. So, Thanksgiving is important. But the actual day, the reason why it came about is one of the tragedies of human history. Now, I want to talk about a book, two books. One, they're actually a part one and part two. And these are really good books for you to get. And this is African People, European Holidays, A Mental Genocide by Reverend Isamusa Boroshango. African People, European Holidays, A Mental Genocide. So he has volume one, and then he has volume, wow, you see how that went? Then he has volume two. Now, I want to just go here. So on volume one, he has on here, so this is volume one, and it's by African World Books of Baltimore, Maryland, and these are the chapters that he has. So he goes into the historical roots of Misgiving Day. He doesn't call it Thanksgiving Day, he calls it Misgiving Day. And then he goes into African slave trade, foundation of American economy, a journey through time and space aboard the African time machine. He goes into a unity, Umoja Karamu, and he's talking about the importance of Kwanzaa. And then he goes in, he doesn't call it Christmas, he calls it the Merry Mess. And so, it goes into a lot of things. It talks about Kwanzaa and how we should not allow Kwanzaa to be co-opted. This book was written in the 90s or late 80s. Reverend Isa Mushabora Shango was the pastor, the minister of Church of the Black Messiah in Washington, D.C. So I just want to look, and here he is behind his desk, writing out his books. So he looks at some things in here, and he looks at the idolized image of the Pilgrim Fathers. And he really researches and says, they were not the noble people that we were led to believe. He even has like the mental state of the Pilgrims, and this is from a governor writing in Virginia. Pilgrim cannibalism. Captain John Smith, 1580 to 1631, wrote, "So great was our famine that a savage we slew and buried him. The poorer sorts took him up again and ate him. So did divers ones another boiled and stewed with herbs. The one amongst the rest did kill his wife, powdered her, and had eaten part of her." This was General History of Virginia, Book 4, page 294, 1606 to 1625. So this is not the idolized image of the Pilgrims. And then he goes on to explain how, when Europe, they wanted to empty their jails, they sent them to the Americas and Australia. And so these were the people that were the so-called founding fathers and pilgrims. They wrote about them. He's talking to, the Governor Bradford writing about them in 1642, about their drunkenness, their uncleanliness, and, all of these sodomy. There's so many things that we're not told. Lazy pilgrims steal from the Indians. So I'm not going to go into his book, but when you reflect on what he calls, what Reverend Isa Musabora Shanga says, is Misgiving Day. Let's think about who the Pilgrims were and what they did to the Native Americans who welcomed them. All right. Oh, wow, Emma, you're such a killjoy. All right. So now in his book, so that's book 1. And in book 2, African People, European Holidays, Mental Genocide, he goes in and he talks about a thing called the 4th of July. Not the 4th of July, the 4th of July. And he breaks down these things. And something that we like to do at WOSE, we do this, we either read it, or now, because of YouTube, we use a rendition of this that's done by James Earl Jones, and he's reading Frederick Douglass's what the 4th of July means to people that were enslaved. And so it's coming up, I'm sure. Where are you? Did I pass it? He has so much in here. I'm going to get to it really soon. Here it is. It's coming up. Oops, I must have skipped it. Anyway, it's Frederick Douglass's, he was asked to speak at the 4th of July, and he's like, "Are you guys trying to mock me? What good does it mean for me to come before you and talk about the 4th of July the Declaration of Independence, and we're still slaves. And it's a powerful speech that he gives, and especially nowadays when you can hear either, here it is, what to the American slave is your 4th of July? Our answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days of the year the gross injustice and cruelties to which he is a constant victim. And it goes down from there. So European holidays, a mental genocide. It's called African people, European holidays, a mental genocide. You know, sometimes we just start doing stuff and we don't really know what the process is. You know, you can be involved in a process and not know anything about the process at all. Here is Reverend Isa Musa Boroshango. He passed away, let's see, when did he passed away June 14th, 2004. So it's been a while, but you can still get his books. He also has a book on the original Black Angel. Yes, you know, so he was, you know, he's honoring the black woman, and he's saying that she's our first image of an angel. And he has a beautiful a picture that I don't know if you can still get it, but it's a sister, and she's got this free-flowing fro, and she's got this beautiful robe, and she's got wings, and you know, it's a very beautiful picture. So I would research it. Research books by Reverend Isa Musa Boroshango, and you won't be disappointed if you are concerned about African-centered thought. All right, now let's get to the main topic, which is they came before Columbus. Dun, dun, dun. Now, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima wrote this book in the 80s. They came before Columbus. And here's Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. If you should search him too. He's on YouTube, and he has this really unique voice, slightly high pitched, you know, kind of a British diction, very erudite. He could talk for 2 hours, no notes, and have you captivated and fascinated. So he wrote this book. They came, the African presence in America. They came before Columbus. He also, there's a book that I did not include that I meant to include in my talk. Did it get put in? It did not. Well, anyway, it's called African Presence in Early America. It's part of the Journal of African Civilization. So getting back to him. Also, somebody that has followed the work of Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, got his PhD, and he is a anthropologist extraordinaire. He wrote The First Americans Were African. A person that has a name similar to mine. His name is David Imhotep. You know, I did a search on my name once, and well, a couple of times, and I found that I'm not the only Imhotep Alkebulan. That actually there is an Imhotep Alkebulan in Mississippi. He's a civil rights attorney, and then there's Michael Imhotep, of course, of the African History Network, and then David Imhotep, who wrote this wonderful work. So he wrote this book first. And then he did a revised edition of that book. And this is one of the things, I just want to read to you a portion of what he says. He says, cowboys and Indians? Not hardly. The cowboys actually came on the scenery late. The first Americans, as seen on the cover of this book, will be thoroughly covered. This picture was taken by the crew of the HMS Challenger Expedition, 1872 to 1876, at the most southern region of South America at a place called Tierra del Fuego. I'm not very good with those names. This picture can be seen in the National History Museum of London. Africans not only came before Columbus and Clovis, but were in the Americas far before any other group, at least 60,000 years ago. This book proceeds to bring out the latest anthropological and archaeological information on the African presence in early America. So way before Columbus. Also, before we leave Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima was asked to come before Congress in 1992, the 400th year of Columbus so-called discovering America, and you can actually get a transcript of this talk where Van Sertima explodes the myths that that Columbus discovered America. Actually, Columbus never even set foot on the mainland called America. So all of it is a lie. There's a reggae song, it's by Burning Spear, and it's called Christopher Columbus is a Damn Blasted Liar. It's one of my favorite songs. All right. So now, look at this picture. These black people in the Americas, going back thousands of years. Now, what Dr. Ivan Van Sertima showed was this, that some people around 800, 900 BC, during the Nubian Renaissance in ancient Kemet, sailed down the Mediterranean and either they were going there on purpose or they got caught up in the natural currents. And what he showed was you don't need a rudder to even go to the Americas from the west coast of Africa. That you can leave and see these currents. You can go to these currents. These currents will take you all over. Natural currents that are in existence today. Now, Thor Heyerdahl in 1969 scientifically proved that. And so he got with some Cape Verdeans, and they constructed this boat out of papyrus. What is papyrus? Paper. So they made a boat out of paper, and the day that they sailed, the rudder broke. So what does that mean? The rudder broke. They had no way of steering, but they decided to keep on the experiment, and what they found is that they were sailed right to Central and South America. Now, generally, when we see these giant heads, now they're usually like 18 feet in circumference, maybe about 6 or 7 feet tall. They weigh about 8 or 9 tons, and you'll see these, and they're all there's like 20 locations. Can you see that good? Mm-hmm. 20 locations of where these giant heads. These are the ones that have been found so far. So, and a lot of them look like this. Now, I have to say, and this is, we have to go in and do all kind of proof. You should be able to just look at this face and say, okay, those are Africans. But no, Europeans try to go in, European anthropologists, European archaeologists, they go in and they say, well, the reason why that these statues look as they do is because they couldn't find sharp enough tools. I know. I wish you could see Earth Mama's face. She gave that face like, what? That's right. So the reason why he looks as he does is because they could not find sharp enough tools. And I happened to catch Earth Mama. She made it to Mexico. So how long ago was it when you went?
Oh, what was that? 2000, maybe 11 or 12.
Really, that far back? You still look the same. You look like you haven't aged. And why were you there? What you
I
went there
want to go.
especially?
I went there to learn about African, what they call the third. Oh my God, the Third Reich, which is the African presence in Mexico.
Ah.
Whereas they had it partially right.
Did they have like a conference or what?
No, we went with an elder who put a trip together out of Chicago, and we went to like Chiapas, we went to Veracruz, and we were studying what they call the third phase or something like that, and it was African, but they were basically talking about Africa. It started off talking about the Africans who came through the conquistadors into Mexico for the gold, the guy who got expelled from Cuba.
Uh-huh.
But really, we ended up going to the first people, which were the Africans. You see stuff like that. That's not.
Well,
that's
here,
not
this she looks like she was with that original group that came in. Those beautiful features. None of these are smiling though. She has a beautiful smile. But so here, there's these Africoid statues all over, and here is a picture somebody made, and they don't all look the same. Each one is kind of like a snowflake. They're slightly different. There's no one that's exactly the same, but here somebody has gone and chronicled all the heads and given us, like a chronology. Now here is a group. They found, here this head is. Wow. We were there. Now this is 800 BC. Now I want to back up because what had happened was that the people that left the Nile Valley, that went to and visited either by mistake or on purpose this culture called the Olmec culture. The Olmec culture was already in existence. And I'm not even sure that is the original name. As I'm talking, I don't even think that that's the original name. But they're generally referred to as the Olmecs. And so there were already native people there that these people from the Nile Valley infused themselves in. And where these heads are found are where the original pyramids are found in the so-called New World. Here we go again. See, they're all over there. They're all different kinds, but they're all the same. Look, now this is in Van Sertima's book, and he's using a present-day Nuba person on the left, and he's comparing it with the Olmec heads. And so, there's not one, quote, true Africoid type. As I've said before, that African people go from snow to crow and maybe not have any admixture of European, but there are a variety, a range of physical features, which I want to give credit because it's the first time I heard it. I know he didn't make it up, but the first time I heard it was Runoko Rashidi when he talked to us about the phenotype. And so there are several phenotypes for African. We go from the tallest, the Watusi, to the shortest, the Twa person. We have broad noses, we have narrow noses, we have thick lips, we have narrow, we have straight hair, we have woolly hair. And so there are all kinds of black people scattered throughout the earth. And that's what we're talking about today. The African presence in America. They came before Columbus. Here, this one they found. Can you imagine how these people felt when they saw these heads? The reason why we have to keep saying it because we're taught that we never contributed anything to human development, to human civilization. If you open up Anthony Browder's book, Nile Valley Contribution to Civilization, he is quoting people like Toynbee and what's the guy with the they say he took a kite with the key.
Ben Franklin.
Ben Franklin. you know, Abraham Lincoln. They're all clowning us. They're all saying we have not contributed anything to civilization. And then here we go, 18. And really, I want to tell you that you cannot carbon date stone. You know, they found some plant material underneath these heads that they were able to carbon date, and that's where they get the date 800 BC. But really, in truth, we don't know how old these are.
They preserve very well.
But they're disintegrating. They're disintegrating. Some are disintegrating. Look, this actually looks like my cousin. I have a cousin, a female cousin, whose features are like this. Beautiful features. Now these are features that we don't like. These are features that are usually denoted as unattractive, as ugly. But here, something about these great people that caused the native people in the Americas to preserve these beautiful statues.
Look at the cut on his head.
I mean, he's wearing a fade.
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing a fade. All right, and then, now you know only black people do this.
Mm-hmm.
He's got cornrows on the back of the statues, and then they have like little barrettes on the back. You know how we do. We are still doing that today. Got a colorized version and in black and white. Look at that beautiful, beautiful features. Sometimes, sisters and brothers, you might see me out and about, and I'm staring at you, and I like to look at people's features. Some of you have that 5,000-year-old look, and I marvel at that. And here, look at this beautiful. You know, they didn't just start putting earrings in their ear.
Okay. Well, don't that kind of look a little bit like when they sometimes talking about aliens, about the eyes? Oh, our eyes look like that. Even, I mean, I'm just saying, like, they want to give credit to everybody else but us. But I'm just saying.
Aliens?
No. But you know how when they talk about aliens, I watched a lot of stuff around aliens on week long, and they just want to give these people credit.
Sure.
Because they can't give us credit.
Right.
But there's sometimes using features that they know come from us. Just to justify, they can't justify why things look like that.
You know what? I don't want to spend a lot of time, but I actually have. I have a picture. It's a sister. She's a National Geographic, and she's from the Sudan, and she has what we would call Asian eyes, and she's smoking like a pipe, and she's on the cover of National Geographic. Every human feature that is exhibited today comes out of Africa. So here's this brother, the nose, the lips, the eyes. I mean, I know some people. Okay, Rolanda, let me see if I can make you remember this. Now, you were at the Ma'afa celebration this year.
Yes.
And it was a sister there. She was a Yoruba. Do you remember her? And she led the like kind of like a for lack of a better term, African qigong.
Okay.
Yes. You're right. Do you remember her face? She had what people would call Asian eye. She's an unmixed African Yoruba from Nigeria.
Yep.
You know. So these features, you remember?
Yep.
Or are you just saying?
No, I do. No, I do. You're right. No, you're absolutely right.
All right. Now here, sisters and brothers, this one actually comes from Canada.
Wow.
Canada, and the date is unknown. They won't even let you know how old this one is. The date is unknown. He kind of looks like those of you that watch NBA basketball. I know this is really geeky, and this is just. I'm here for a true confession. This is how I really think. You remember he used to play for the Warriors, and then he went on to play for the Boston Celtics, when they were Larry Bird and Casey Jones was the coach, and Dennis, that red-haired guy, was the guard, and Cedric Maxwell. Well, the person I'm talking about is Robert Parrish. This picture kind of looks like Robert Parrish to me. I don't have a comparison, but here he is again. And this is in a museum in Canada today, along with this one. See, we don't like our features today, but they're preserved in ancient times as if to remind us, hey, love yourself, love your features, love your black features. There was an elder at our church, we'll say her name was Mother Spriggins, Liberta Spriggins, and you would ask her, how you doing, Mother Spriggins? She says, I'm working on my own black self. And that's what we need to do. We need to work on our own black self. We need to study ourselves. So now, there was another wave of African people. So that's one way. There were many waves, but I'm just going to chronicle two. And the other wave goes back to the brother of Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa was the king of the Mali Empire, which was a vast empire in West Africa. His brother was Abubakari, and he left in the 13th century AD, took many ships, and they went to the Americas. Now this is the Mali Empire. This is how far the Mali Empire, the extent of it. See how big that is? It included what we call Timbuktu. You know, from here to Timbuktu, that saying. This was a university city, along with Janneh. And we talked about this in a previous program, where the first successful surgical operation on a human eye took place for the removal of cataract. Africans were doing that. There are pictures in China that have giraffes from Africa. That people are coming all over the world to study there. All right. So here it is again. It's a little bit clearer. See how big, how vast that empire. And these are their what they left behind. Now, there was a German that Dr. Ivan van Serta ran into and began to study with that when he visited in Mexico. His name was Van Woutenau. And Van Woutenau had been collecting these figurines of Africa that are in the Americas, pre-Christian America. Here they are again. See? Okay. This is the way that sister's eyes was. You know that day. Mm-hmm. Don't call these Asian eyes. These are African eyes. Right on. Queen Ty has African eyes, not Asian eyes, and there are groups, ethnic groups in Africa today with the same phenotype. Again, see, he started his locks. We're talking about they came before Columbus. What I really should entitle is We Came Before Columbus. Christopher Columbus is a damn blasted liar. Thank you, Burning Spear, Winston Rodney, for giving us that song. Now here, this is an interesting portrait here. It says, the descendants of black governors of Ecuador, Zambo chiefs from Esmeraldas in present-day Ecuador, who visited Quito in 1599. They are shown here in Spanish dress and Indian ornaments, but were the descendants of a group of 17 shipwrecked Africans who gained political control of an entire province in Ecuador in short order. We came before Columbus. We came before Columbus. Now, this is kind of a sad group. And the reason why I say this is sad is because everything was not in harmonious balance between Africoid people and I don't know what you'd call the Native Americans. So, and maybe it's because they were in the higher echelons of society. But this picture here, and you see all these different groups, all these different, pictures of people. And this caption says, Negroid at Danzantes at Monte Alban. They were descendants of Nubian Olmec rulers. Some are depicted here slain and castrated by a revolt of natives in Monte Albino, 400 BC.
Oh.
So it wasn't always harmonious. And, speeding up history, fast forwarding, there were times when the Native Americans worked with us, sheltered us, but there was also a time that Native Americans enslaved us. And after the Civil War, many of the so-called civilized tribes were given reparations for their slaves. Okay? So let's just tell the whole truth. That it wasn't always harmonious. We were divided against each other and used against each other. It was we should not brag about being called Buffalo Soldiers. Yes, we were great soldiers, but we were used against the people in in North America. We fought on the side of the Union Army after the Civil War, but what did that do? That left our people in the South unprotected. Oh, I know. I'm just such a killjoy.
I think that's great information.
I'm just such a killjoy. I don't even know why you allow me on the show to talk about these things. Now,
before you go to not to jump off subject.
Okay.
Why then are some of us so obsessed with wanting to be mixed with Native people? Why do we do such romance with that group in particular?
Well,
not all of them. But
we don't like our features. I used to go to this meeting. It was put on by Khalid Abdullah Tariq El Mansour, who used to come on KDIA. A radio station, and he had a group called the Afro-American Association, and we would meet on 4209 Grove Street, which is now Martin Luther King Street. And there was a brother there. His name was Amin, and sometimes Khalid would be a little late, and Amin would always open up. And he would, every time I wouldn't go all the time, but every time I would go, Amin would say these things. He would say, "Black people have 4 basic problems: our hair, our nose, our lips, and our skin." So we want to identify, because these features that we have been denigrated so that we do not want to we do not want to be associated. We try to distance ourselves as far, and people say, I have Indian in my family. Like that is some type of I don't know, it sets you apart from the other African people. Now, there were people, the Seminole Indians are a mixture of African and Native American people who mixed in the Florida regions, who fought and held off the United States for a long time until I believe it was Andrew Jackson that came in and decimated them, and then they were transported across the country. So, there have been alliances off and on with Native American people and people getting together. Nature will take its course, and so there was admixtures. There was a famous cowboy, called Deadwood Dick, who, and you can see his picture. He's dressed like a cowboy. He's got a big, almost sombrero, and his hair is not nappy. It's straight, and he's mixed with Native American and Africoid people. Now, I want to address this because this is something that now we're not African. We're Native. And so this is a group that's pushing that. And I was listening to a brother, and I'm sorry that I can't think of his name, but he's on YouTube, and he was talking about this particular phenomenon, and I transcribed a little bit of what he said, and actually I'm not going to read it, but what he said was this: there were basically two groups that came into the Americas from Asia. One group came in like 23,000 years ago. They came across the Bering Straits. And those people would be what we call, the Native American people, that we see. They're your typical Indian people. And then there was another group that came actually from the area of Australia. And those people are the dark-skinned people that we see in pictures of, quote-unquote, Native American, dark-skinned Native American. They don't have the Africoid hair, the nappy hair. Their hair is more straight, like the people in Australia, like the Dravidians in India. And so he also suggests that people, if they want to trace, do a DNA test and see what the DNA does. It connect you with those people, that are the descendants of the Australoids, which is okay. I know that's even a pejorative term. All right, I hope I'm addressing
that was good.
your question. Sometimes I can get a little off. Do I want to say anything? Oh, now, this is a very important point to me. I was listening to Philip Matthews' show, and David Imhotep was talking to Dr. David Imhotep was talking to Dr. Kaba Hiawatha Kamene. And Dr. Kamene said this. He said that Amerigo Vespucci, who we think America is named after, actually comes from a tribe of black people in the Nicaraguan area, and they are called whoops, with this I can't make this line. They're called Amaruca, and or sometimes it's called Amerique. It's a word that's in the Mayan language. It means country of perpetually strong wind, or the land of the wind. And sometimes when you add the suffix "k" or "ika," it could not only mean wind, but also air, but it also meant a spirit that breathes life into itself. There's a letter that, I'm going to try to pronounce his name correctly, Alberigo Vespucci. He wrote to the Florentine fathers, and that he was changing his name to Amerigo Vespucci after these people in Nicaragua. And I think I have their picture. Just a minute. And here it is. And this is the area where they're from. See, Amerique. So even the name America is not outside. It is actually an indigenous name. Now, just to give a little bit of digression, because I'll do this sometimes. So when I see the word America, I look at, so you have Mare. Can you see that clearly? This is Mère du Nature or Suf. Mary. It means beloved or mare. And I love this. I love this glyph because mare is a hoe. Not those hoes that you might be talking about, might be thinking about. A hoe, no, a farming tool that is used to cultivate. And so what it's saying is that in order to do love, you have to cultivate it. And you know, some of you know that working with our people, you have to work at it. So we have mare in there, and then we also have Ka. This is the sign of the Ka, Ka. It means spirit. Some translation it means spirit. Some people say it means the double. So really, when I see the word America, when I just word sound, it says to me, beloved of the soul. But okay, that's just me. Don't go by that. That's just my little digression. So we talked about today, they came before Columbus. We looked at a little bit of Reverend Dr. Isa Musa Boroshango's work, African People, European Holidays, and Mental Genocide. And then we went into the great Dr. Ivan Van Sertima that came before Columbus. We looked at Dr. David Imhotep's work. The first Americans were African. And then we showed you some the natural trade winds, talked about Thur Heyerdahl's experiment, and then we showed you all these beautiful Olmec heads. And then we talked about the second migrations that came in. You know, that was one of the things that Dr. Ivan Van Sertima said when he was talking before Congress. He said Columbus said that black people were here before him because he said he saw some black people returning from Africa to the Americas. When he got to Haiti and he saw the Haiti people there, the native people there, they said that they got these gold-tipped spears from black people that had come from the east, and when they took those spears to the metallurgists in Spain, and they were able to divide the particular mineral content, it matched exactly with the gold content in Guinea. So you know, we were certainly here before Columbus, certainly here before Eric the Red, the Vikings. We went into all of these features and whatnot, and we talked about this word, America, Amerigo, America, which Vespucci changed his name, and it actually ended up winding to be the name that we call North and South America. So I hope this will prompt you to do some research. Go look up Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. David Imhotep, Dr. Isa Musa Boroshango for the information that we related to today. Thank you for participating in this program with me, Earth Mama. And again, we wish you luck. No, I'm just kidding. I was going to do a Don Cornelius. I'll just say, Uncle Job Sanev, life, prosperity, and health. Live up.